And welcome back to Live Now from Fox as we continue to follow this breaking news, this Supreme Court decision just coming in moments ago, limiting judges' use of nationwide injunctions. This is all pertaining to this birthright citizenship case from President Trump. And I did want to share with you some of the reaction that is coming in here. We shared this with you just moments ago from Attorney General Pam Bondi. She says today the Supreme Court instructed district courts to stop the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump. This would not have been possible without tireless work from our excellent lawyers at the Justice Department. We also are getting in another reaction here. And I'm not going to read this to you in full, but this is a statement from Attorney General Matthew Platkin on the Supreme Court decision. He says, although we disagree with the Supreme Court's decision today, we are glad the court recognized that nationwide orders can be appropriate to protect the plaintiffs themselves from harm, which is true and has always been true in our case. We welcome the opportunity to continue making our case before the district court, particularly because the executive order will not take immediate effect, to show that the president's approach to birthright citizenship is a recipe for chaos on the ground and harm to the states. I do want to bring in Ken Gray from the University of New Haven to join us live to break this all down. Ken, thank you for being here on such short notice. And I think there's just a lot of questions as to what this means. It seems like a partial victory was handed to President Trump, but we still don't really know the future of all of this, right?
That's absolutely right. So this is not a decision by the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. Instead, what this is it's a slapdown of federal judges to stop them from issuing these large-scale injunctions where they are challenging the president's executive order's abilities. And so what they ruled is that they've decided that in this case, the federal court likely exceeded the equitable authority that Congress has given to the federal courts. The federal courts don't exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies consistent with the authority Congress has given them. This is according to Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She wrote,
"That sounds completely sensible, that a federal judge can fight or further a executive order with their powers, but not on a national level. And it's going to have to work its way through the system if it is being challenged, and the Supreme Court will ultimately solve it. But this isn't the time for that right now, and it isn't even about birthright citizenship, except that a federal judge overstepped his boundary, and they're saying that it's possible that Trump did as well by issuing the executive order in the first place. But that hasn't been determined. But just because he may have overstepped his boundaries, they're telling the federal judges, you can't overstep yours. And the Supreme Court ultimately will be the one to handle that part of the check and balances system that we have set up here in the country, and not federal judges. They can only operate within the power given to them by Congress. That's it. And that makes it real cool, too, because now we understand that these judges who feel a certain type of way about a certain type of thing can do their job on the scale that it was meant to be done on, and not trying to invoke. You're over here in Rhode Island or Ohio somewhere, and you're doing things that are going to affect people across the country in Nevada and Sacramento, California, and it doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is for the ruling to be unified and across the board. And it just disgusting to know that the 14th Amendment that they're sticking to for this birthright citizenship wasn't put there for people to abuse. It wasn't put there for folks to illegally come into the country, give birth to children, and that's their way into the country. That's their ticket in. That'll fulfill all their dreams and goals on the under the guise of it being illegal. It's not legal. And if we continue to have politicians who support that type of behavior, whom they make it more confusing, and they like it because it makes it more difficult to undo. When the Democrats allow this kind of stuff to play out, the longer it plays out, the better for them, because it's much more difficult to undo. And even if you get a president like Trump in who claims to be committed to undoing it, how much undoing is he going to do in, what has he got, 3.5 years left? Not very much. And the odds of getting another president in just like him who feels the way he do ain't that great. Could happen. Could even be another Republican, but they just might not be into some of the things as passionately as he is. But in fairness, it's just letting the judges know, step back. When it get to this level, it's going to the Supreme Court. Now, to me, the only thing I could draw from this is that the vote was 6-3 in the favor of the conservative judges, which lets me know that this is going to be a problem when things that concern Trump and his executive orders and his wishes as president, and he wants to exercise his power, the Supreme Court might say, hey, he's not fighting with Congress over this, so why should we be the holdup if we're in the majority on his side, and we should be favoring what he does? And actually, they might genuinely do favor what he's doing. So if that's the case, this could be a warning shot as to things to come. But this doesn't determine anything as far as the birthright citizenship. It's about to heat up, though, because those judges have been put in check, and they do understand what they can and what they cannot do directly from the Supreme Court. This is going to have to work its way through the Supreme Court before we have a clear understanding of which way this is going to go. And if they end birthright citizenship with all of these children, there will be a cutoff. Because there was a time when it was the law of the land. But if Donald Trump succeeds and makes that illegal now and no more birthright citizenship, it's going to be very interesting how things go. It will change a lot of people's goals and trajectory as far as even trying to come to the United States. It might not be worth it. I mean, that was their path. That was a lot of people's path. That was a lot of people's main goal, to get in. And, if you have kids while you're over here, the children will be Americans. The children will be allowed to stay here for their entire life. And actually, they might even be able to get some kind of dual citizenship with Mexico, which makes going back and forth and living a fulfilling life nice. But I agree with the Supreme Court. I think that if a federal judge or judges on that level were included in this process, a president could barely get anything done. I truly believe that in the bare essentials as far as that checks and balances goes. And that's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary branch. That's it. And not everybody in all the state senates around the country get to weigh in on things that the president come up with, just like all the judges from around the country on the federal level don't get to weigh in on federal level type things that the president of the United States does. That's for Congress, and that's for the legislative branch. And that's it. And he is the executive, and he can throw out there whatever he wants, as long as he's not forcefully overtaking anything or running through red lights or ignoring the law or the Constitution. As long as he's in contact with the court, as long as he has a legal team that's processing these cases appropriately, it's not illegal. It might be a little unheard of. The techniques and his drive might be something that we haven't seen for some of the things that he's interested in, but this is going to get really good. If they take away birthright citizenship, this is going to get very interesting. I mean, this will be probably bigger than anything that the Democrats have ever lost. This would be like something that would devastate them, I would imagine. They would not come back from this one easily, although the first chance they get, they would be attacking that one to get that reversed and put back the way it is. I just feel the bottom line of everything is that it wasn't like a lot of our laws in this country, people can come in now in modern times and modern days and take these basic, simple laws that dealt with a particular situation that was going on at that time while it was current, and it addressed it perfectly, or probably to the best of the country's ability. But then when you get decades or at least half a century down the line or further from this kind of stuff, then you start to see they didn't cover all their bases. They didn't dot all their I's and cross their T's. They didn't think that people would use illegal immigration, have a baby to get citizenship into the country. That wasn't being considered, obviously. They were worried about something else. So with that being said, just remember and keep it straight that this is not about birthright citizenship. This is about the order that we're about to go in to see if that's going to happen or not. They're going to let these federal judges know that when it's ultimately decided, it will be ultimately decided, or if any injunctions are placed, they will be placed nationally by the Supreme Court and not by some federal judge who overstepped his boundaries by doing that, which is very interesting that a federal judge in the United States of America doesn't know his job description. He doesn't know the area that he has jurisdiction over. And if he will overstep his boundaries, like all I've been hearing is Trump's overstepping his boundaries, and if we know federal judges are doing that now, because a federal judge should have been aware of that. Apparently the Supreme Court had to let him know and let us all know. So now that we know, let's see what else this expert has to give us. He's quite a knowledgeable man, and I appreciate it when they have good fact-based guests come on and they're not on there with no kind of a spin. This dude seems like he's coming right down the middle, and it gives us an opportunity to expand our knowledge and not feel like we're being manipulated.
That when a court concludes that the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power too. So this is saying that this matter should work its way through the court system to have an overall decision on birthright. But to file an injunction that is general across the country is not within the power of the federal court for just the federal court. That's something that is at a much higher level.
Yeah, and as we take a live look at the Supreme Court, I think another really big key piece of this is people have been discussing the 14th Amendment citizenship clause. Now, for our viewers who may not be familiar with that, it was the Supreme Court decision from 1898, the United States versus Wong Kim Ark, and the court held that the only children who did not automatically receive U.S. citizenship upon being born in the U.S. had to meet some certain requirements here. When it comes to the 14th Amendment and the future of all of this, how do you anticipate that playing a role in the future of how this plays out?
So the 14th Amendment was originally passed to ensure the citizenship of former slaves here in the country. And so what the 14th Amendment says is that all people that are born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. But they have to be under the subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And so in the case that you mentioned, the decision there was the fact that this person had been a citizen of the United States, left the country, and then was coming back into the country and was being denied citizenship. And the Supreme Court said he met the condition for the 14th Amendment. The president's executive order that got rid of citizenship birthright is referring to people who are not citizens coming into the country, having children here, and they're not subject to the jurisdiction. So we will see how the Supreme Court rules on that when it reaches the Supreme Court. But for a federal judge to say, we're going to overrule the president's executive order, that's beyond their power.
That's about as clear as you can put it. And we get that part really clearly. Now, the problem that I have is that a federal judge would even step that far. But in this political climate, it doesn't surprise me that some judge is going to say, Judge Trump is overstepping his boundaries. And as a lawful person and a judge, and understanding his responsibilities as a judge, you would think that he would have a response that would get it handled appropriately and do whatever it is that he's trying to do, but do it, if possible, within the realm of the law. Not to just say, well, he's violating the law, I'm going to violate it too. And it is so important that our Democratic friends and Republican friends remember, and I think that's what Trump's trying to push it on. Hey, that amendment was put in for the offspring of slaves, so they couldn't be deported or harmed in any way and given citizenship as a birthright, which makes perfect sense, because had they began in deporting the Africans after they released them from slavery, where would they put them? Where would they take them to? I mean, what would have happened in that instance? It would have been complete chaos. So a provision was made to secure these newly released slaves' existence in this country, and to solidify that, there it is. But for another group to come along several decades later, and abuse that little hole in the system. They found something that they could take advantage of. And if the Democrats are welcoming in illegal immigrants with open arms, and they're here for a certain amount of time and begin to have children, yeah, you can't just welcome them over them when they have kids and just boot them back out. It just doesn't make sense. So it would be so much better for us and for the stability of our country and the understanding of what the difference between citizenship and people who just come over illegally, for us to stay on top of that kind of thing, to enforce it so that it doesn't get to the point where you win by default. You win because the numbers. If some people were asked a question about birthright citizenship, most people would probably agree with what Trump is saying, because it wouldn't be so much harm done. But once you illegally migrate over 18 to 21 million people into the country in the last 4 years, not ever, but just in the last 4 years, you've opened the floodgates. How do you put the genie back in the bottle? Is no way to do it. So then you pass off this to this guy, and he's trying some radical approach, which sounds crazy because it's impossible to physically do it. It's chaotic. It's just terrible. That the Democrats' way of winning is to just pile on whatever it is they choose to do, to the degree where it can't be reversed, democratically or legally or any other kind of way. So that's a very interesting political approach, I think. And it doesn't seem like everybody is being considered on either front. Believe that. But to start it in that way and not say, hey, the country's going to have a problem with us getting all these illegal immigrants in, or my other political party is going to have a problem with us bringing in all these illegal immigrants, that we may pay a price for that. And I think they did. So you think they would foresee this kind of stuff unless they don't care and they feel it might have been worth giving up an election, losing the presidency, or whatever else happens as a result of their strong bond with the illegal immigrants. But for the rest of us, we have to wake up and do things different. We can't keep supporting a party that is not supporting us, that's doing things that's going to harm us as United States citizens, just in the pure numbers alone. Pure numbers alone. No other reason but just full on saturation of a bunch of illegal immigrants into the levels of life that we're on. So we directly see it every day.
And again, so many questions with this, but as it comes to current immigration law, what can we see going forward here for people who may want to further challenge this as we do, again, it's still unknown here what the future of this is, Ken.
So that's exactly right. It is unknown how it will affect it, but if a judge is ruling on how it affects an individual, one person, that's within their scope. But if they are trying to issue a nationwide injunction, that's beyond their scope. That's what the Supreme Court ruling is only ruling on today. But we've seen a number of different cases here in the recent months where federal judges have issued nationwide injunctions challenging the president's ability to issue executive orders. The Supreme Court has slapped that down with this ruling.
Ken, anything else you want to note about this that I haven't touched on so far? Because you are a wealth of information when it comes to all of this.
Yeah. Again, this is not a ruling on birthright citizenship.
Right.
That is working its way through the courts. And this does not address that. What this addresses is the federal court's ability to issue nationwide injunctions.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us were waiting and watching to see here whether the Supreme Court would fully side with President Trump or not. And this was sort of a surprise to us here.
Yes.
All right, Ken Gray, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. We do appreciate it.
I don't think that they sided with Trump on this one. I really believe that they sided with us as a nation. And the reason I say that is because if they sided with Trump, he would have got what he wanted right now. They're just setting up the right procedure. And I think that makes perfectly good sense that a federal judge in a particular jurisdiction is trying to shut down an executive order nationally. That's a bit beyond your reach. And if that is going to happen, it has to happen within the checks and balances that are there in the Constitution. And that would have to be Congress or the legislative branch questioning what Donald Trump is over there at the executive branch doing. And that's what true checks and balances are. I've been hearing since Trump's been in the White House, checks and balances. Every time they take him to court, checks and balances. And to a degree it is, but only up to the power that judge has. He can't go check and balancing folks above his pay grade. What he has to do is find who is in that seat and try to appeal to them, see if he can get something out of it. I believe that the groundwork that Donald Trump laid in that 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court is going to pay huge dividends for him. He's 6 months in and they're already laying the groundwork to let these judges know you are not about to slow this down individually. We are going to be the ones to say yay or nay. And I believe that the majority of the conservatives in the Supreme Court are going to stick together. And I believe that it's going to be a very big change should birthright citizenship be taken away. And then the people who come here illegally can continue to come and have their kids and have the support of the Democratic Party. But it would be very different to have these children as being citizens of their native country and not citizens of the United States just by physically having been born here. It's a big change. The leniency in this country, it's almost as if, and I mean the leniency on all fronts when it comes to the way we budget and handle money as a country. It seems like we don't want to succeed. It seems like we don't want the things that this country actually requires to happen. We just have so many people taking all that money and pulling it in so many different directions that I don't believe it's evenly being distributed appropriately based on the pure needs of the country not being prioritized. To prioritize anything above a basic need of a United States citizen is why I cheer for United States immigration laws to be reformed and make sense. so then we can have a handle on it. Because if there's no handle on it, I don't see why any politician would or could stand up in front of a group of people and ask for their vote. Like, comment, share, and please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Black Popcorn.